Okay, CIS 107. Welcome to the video lecture for Windows 10. And I'm not going to do all of the slides because of the size of the video files that I put together. They take quite a while to download in some cases based on the last couple of the videos that I've done. So I'm going to skip around a little bit to the more important slides and the more important content that I think is important for Windows 10 in this lecture. We've already gone through Windows 8 and Windows 7, and this is going to be very similar to those slide decks and lecture in regards to the different features, the different versions, and capabilities, and the differentiation between Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. So we're going to start off with some learning outcomes. What we want to do in this lecture is really just talk about Windows 10 editions and the methods of installation that are that come with Windows 10 when you're installing a new version on a laptop or PC. We're going to talk about performing post-installation tasks to get Windows 10 ready for everyday use. Some of the new features associated with Windows 10, and I'm fairly certain that most people in this course in 107 are using Windows 10 or the Mac OS, but we'll talk about the different features in Windows 10, and then we'll talk a little bit about local security in Windows 10. So let's start off with talking about installing Windows 10 and some of the different editions. So we have the Education Edition, which is really a stripped down version that's built for education because there's a significant discount that Microsoft provides to colleges and universities and educational institutions in some of the elementary education, K through 12 as well. There's Enterprise Edition, which has some customized features associated with it. There's Mobile Edition, which really isn't that popular anymore. And then there is Windows 10 Home, Pro, and Mobile as far as retail editions are concerned. So here's just some of the comparisons between Home and Pro, which is the main thing I wanted to get across for the editions, is that with Pro, much like with 8.1 and with Windows 7, is you cannot domain join a Windows 10 home operating system to a Active Directory domain environment. And that is primarily the main feature associated with the difference between home and Windows 10 Pro. Some of the other things is you can't do group policy management for Windows domain in home, and you can't do file encryption on NTFS volumes within Windows 10 Home either, and that's kind of a big deal with BitLocker, and you can see that you don't get BitLocker or BitLocker to go either with Windows 10 Home, and those are some of the more popular features of Windows 10 today because people are doing a lot more encryption of their data these days. They want to be able to encrypt flash drives, and you don't have a lot of those features associated with Windows 10 Home. So the Pro upgrade really is a good upgrade because of some of those extra features that you get. Some of the system requirements associated with Windows 10, you can see the difference between the 32-bit versions and the 64-bit version. 2 gigs of RAM is pretty much a standard nowadays for operating systems, as well as the disk space, because storage is so much cheaper now. You're probably going to, when you buy a new laptop or machine, you're going to be getting a 64-bit version anyways. So that's the more common configuration item for Windows 10 these days on new PCs and laptops. DirectX 9 graphics with the enhanced Windows display drivers, as well as some of the resolution abilities there as well. So some of the touch requirements, we talked about this in Windows 8.1. It's now multi-touch capable, and you have those different modes that you have between Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. You have tablet mode, which is a nice important feature if you're going to be using a Windows 10 tablet. But most people are using iPads these days. There's Windows 10 tablets like the Surface that are very popular that you can use in tablet mode. So consider that when you're considering Windows 10. So the upgrade process, there is a 1-year free upgrade from 8.1 to 10. There are still some, and from 7 Windows 7 SP1 Service Pack 1 as well. But that ended a couple of years ago, but there are still ways to upgrade to Windows 10 for free. And the way that you do that is getting the accessibility upgrade to Windows 10. And if any of you want to do that, if you have an older machine that you can't really do the free upgrade from anymore, go and search on Google for accessibility Windows 10 upgrade, and you'll see how to do that in Google. So this is how it works. You go through the regular installation process, and you can see how once you've done the upgrade, you get the confirmation component from a compatibility perspective to see if you meet the requirements before you do the upgrade. It's a pretty simple process. Not going to go through a lot of these. I'll tab through these relatively quickly. The activation of it, if you have an active copy of 8.1 or 7, you will be okay in terms of the activation process. And as far as some of the features that are removed during the Windows 10 upgrade, here's a slide of some of the features that are removed as a part of the update process. USB floppy driver, which not a lot of people are using floppy drives anymore, so I can see why they wanted to move that. So that's a main one. And then they removed some of the games as well, like Solitaire, Minesweeper, and Hearts. Boo-hoo. So preparing for the install and the update, here are some of the tasks that you need to do. The big thing here is make sure your firmware is up to date. Make sure that you have any drivers for particular peripherals or hardware that you have on your machine, so that if you do the update and those drivers don't take, that you can reinstall those drivers. And then here's the sign-in process. One difference between Windows 10 and Windows 7, this started in Windows 8.1, is having a local account versus a cloud-based account. And a lot of you have had to see this. If you're signing into a Windows machine, I always ask you for a live account, set up that live account with Microsoft services so that you can transfer settings and have OneDrive account and Skype and all of that stuff. I usually set my machines up with just a local account if I'm doing testing and things like that, because I don't want any of my settings and some of the machines that I use with my live account to get those extra settings or any changes. So I don't like messing with it. And then if you're in a Windows environment at work, you would sign into your Active Directory domain accordingly to get that machine domain joined in the workplace. And you can install from the web. There's a web-based setup. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these traditional setup processes. So let's talk about post-installation tasks really quickly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. So this is really lab focused. So because we're not in class, we can't do a lot of these, but this is showing the components of the GUI, the power menu, file explorer, Microsoft Edge browser, and the taskbar, troubleshooting some of the drivers, personalizing display settings, all of these things. Hopefully, if you want to do them on your machine, please go through the slide deck and mess around with these settings within your Windows 10 machine. And this was one of the things that we were going to do in class in person, but because we're not in class, please go through these things and do them at home. Like configuring Windows Update is an important thing in settings. When you click on the Windows button in settings, it will take you to a Windows Update and Recovery icon. And this is a great screen to make sure that you're updating your machine. Pretty much I set it to update or check for an update every day and automatically download and install those updates so that I have the latest updates. Now, in a working environment, they typically wouldn't set that kind of setting to automatically download and install the update. They would manually do that with a systems management software that would go out, not to Microsoft, but go to a server on their internal network. And then they would test those updates before they deploy them out to their machines, because they have much more complicated configuration environments and applications that are installed in the work network environment or the workplace network environment. So, but for a traditional consumer user, having those updates download and install automatically is the way you should set it up. So here are some of the Windows 10 features. The start menu, which hasn't changed much from Windows 8.1 other than the swipe right or the swipe left. And now it's a Windows icon down there at the bottom, and that is one of the reasons why that Windows 10 has been a very popular operating system. Here is the Action Center icon that you can see in Windows 10 for tablet mode or in desktop mode. And you can see that icon there on the right where it says tablet mode, and you can basically click on that and switch between the different modes. When you go into tablet mode, it brings up the Metro interface. And I know we had one student that said that they really liked the Metro interface. I could go with it or without it, but this is where the active tiles environment comes from Windows 8.1. If you look at enable tablet mode as default, you can set your tablet to enable that mode as a default setting, but most people will probably just leave it in automatic mode. So getting started with Cortana. Cortana is much like Siri. I don't really use it that much, and nor do I use Siri, but it's basically an intelligent voice-based search system. It learns about all of your locations and cloud storage environments. It's a little intrusive, to be honest with you, but if it's something that you like having on your Windows 10 machine, you can, if you have a microphone on your machine or laptop, you can go ahead and use it. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Cortana. There are some settings for Cortana that you can go through and configure. You can personalize it with Bing, the search engine, which when you have default Windows 10 machine, it is set up by default. And here are some of the settings for Cortana. You have different settings that you can set for Cortana, quickly viewing thumbnails, going through task views, etc. And here's a screenshot image of how they look in that task view virtual desktops, new to Windows 10, and has long been available in OS X and Macs and in Linux. And so you can move between virtual desktops using the following keys there. I would definitely suggest that if you are going to be looking at an IT career, which I believe most of the students in this class are considering IT as a career, that you go through and play around with virtual desktops within Windows, because it's one of those things that is a kind of a commodity skill within IT to be able to understand virtualization and how virtual desktops work. So please go through some of those exercises and set up virtualization and virtual desktops within Windows 10. The Windows Store is something that is added into Windows 10, and you can download particular apps within the Windows Store that are specifically designed and made for Windows 10 and for Windows 10 tablets. Then here are some of the store settings that you have where you can update your apps automatically. You can turn on or off live tiles, things of that nature. And you would have to have a live account to set up the Windows Store experience within Windows 10. It is integrated with Xbox, so you can stream live TV to your Windows 10 PC, which is kind of a cool feature. I have used it in the past for gaming, and it's kind of a nice feature to have. In changing the user picture, you can kind of customize your user picture within Windows 10, and it's in the account settings. You can see up on the right-hand side where you see your name or the account that you're using. So let's talk a little bit about Windows 10 security, and then we'll end this video lecture. So Windows 10 security, here are some of the more default settings for critical security features within Windows. You have Smart Screen, you have Defender, Firewall, Windows Hello, and Windows Passport. And we'll talk primarily about Defender and Firewall of the features in Windows 10, and then I'll gloss over Windows Hello for a minute. So here's a screenshot of some of the privacy settings that you have within Windows 10, and you can turn things on and off here. The smart screen filter is a really important feature because it is basically malware protection, and it protects you against downloading potential files that have malware from different sources like browsers, email, or in the local network. So make sure that the smart screen filter is enabled on your machine. Windows Hello is a biometric capability, so you don't have to really use passwords to log into your machine or to provide or pass credentials to other machines. And so it's a really nice feature. I would recommend that if your machine, your laptop or your desktop machine is capable of using it, that you do use it and turn it on and use a biometric sign-in like a fingerprint or maybe even a facial recognition capability. My Surface laptop that I have here, or my Surface Pro, has the camera that's capable of using the facial recognition and iris scan, and that's how I log into my Windows 10 PC, so that even if I had a password logger or a hacker got into my machine, I would have the capability, or I would not be passing over or doing any kind of keystrokes if they had a keylogger on my machine. I would be using an encrypted biometric logon, and so they couldn't really compromise my credentials at that point. So Microsoft Passport is only for enterprise users or using the Enterprise Edition, and the authentication is tied to your hardware and something called a TPM chip. I'm not going to get into that, but you can also use certificates to access network resources and using digital tokens like the YubiKeys or the Google Titan keys are how this works. But I'm not gonna get into those particular elements in this particular lecture. Windows Defender is free anti-spyware, anti-malware protection for your PC. And sometimes installing like McAfee or Symantec or third-party products disables Windows Defender. Please make sure that it is not disabled, because it provides an extra layer of protection if you're using some of those other products. So the way you do that is just make sure you check your firewall control panel to make sure that those things are turned on and the firewall is turned on and enabled, because you don't want to be unprotected with some of those other products that might not have the things that Windows Firewall has or is blocking. Here is a way that you can go into the control panel and allow particular apps through the Windows Firewall. This is particularly important for gaming. So some of you gamers out there have maybe had to go out and do some Google searching for how to change or update these particular firewall settings. But you can see here, you can go down and look at all of the different apps from within your computer configuration environment in the firewall to make any particular changes of applications that may be blocked by the Windows Firewall that you might be trying to use on your PC. And so here's a screenshot of the inbound rules that you can change, and you can see how on the right side in the Actions tab, you can go ahead and create new rules or edit existing rules there. So we talked about a lot. I went through it very fast, and so I'm, because of the time and the video size, I wanted to make sure I didn't spend a ton of time and going through each individual slide and spending a lot of time talking about it like I usually do in my in-person lectures. But we talked about the different Windows 10 editions today and how to install and configure them on a Windows 10 or a laptop. We talked about post-installation tasks. We talked about some of the features in Windows 10, and we talked about some of the security features in Windows 10. So we didn't have a quiz this week, but there will be a quiz on Windows 10 next week. So please go through these slides. I will post them in announcements out on Canvas. And I hope everybody is safe and is getting used to working remotely or taking classes remotely. So this is probably a wake-up call for some of you. Myself, I've been doing kind of remote work throughout my entire career as an IT professional, so kind of used to it, and having all of the capabilities set up, I was already ready to go. So again, thanks everybody for being able to switch over from in-person class to remote. And hopefully you're all learning as much as you can while you're in this coronavirus lockdown. So thanks again, and we'll talk to everybody real soon. And stay safe, like I said. Thanks, everybody.